Welcome to this flight of the Retail Pilot. I'm Ken Pilot, former CEO and current brand advisor, investor, and board member. I'm thrilled to share with you some of the insights from retail's leaders and legends, as well as my perspective on retail today. This podcast is sponsored by the following. Want to drive more traffic and conversions on your e-commerce site? Brands that use video see 41% more traffic from search engines. And that's just the start. Meet Firework, the leader in AI-powered video commerce. Trusted by brands like L'Oreal and Unilever, Firework turns any page into an immersive, shoppable experience. From pre-recorded long-form content to short-form and everything in between. With Firework, you can easily integrate social media videos into your product pages and run pre-recorded digital showrooms with shoppable content. Plus, Firework offers AI-powered virtual assistants to personalize shopper experience and drive higher conversion. That's why I'm an investor and advisor. Learn more at firework.com. Welcome to the Retail Pilot. I'm Ken Pilot, your host, and today I have the good fortune of having Molly Howard, co-founder and CEO of La Ligne, a fashion brand launched in 2016 that's known for its modern and timeless focus on stripes. Before joining La Ligne, Molly worked in investment banking and then asset management at Credit Suisse. Howard decided to transition to fashion, driven by a desire to bring a fashion, modern approach to the industry. Molly partnered with Vogue veterans Meredith, Melling, and Valerie, Macaulay to create La Ligne. Howard's focus on building a healthy, profitable, and sustainable business has been key to the brand's success. She has emphasized careful growth, ensuring that the company stays profitable without excessive reliance on outside funding. Under Molly's leadership, La Ligne has expanded into physical retail stores, selective wholesale partnerships, and international markets while maintaining its strong brand identity centered on versatility, high quality, and effortless style. Howard is also known for her progressive management style, fostering a collaborative work environment. Molly, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I've heard a lot about you over the years. From friends, from work peers, seen so much growth in the brand. I'm so excited to have you on and hear a little bit more about you, your story, and how you're doing. So
great. Excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your story. You've got an interesting background.
Yeah.
And it came up through the financial world. And
yeah, I feel like it's pretty unusual in this space, particularly I think as like a co-founder. I feel like a lot of the times they bring in people with my background a little bit later. But yeah, so I went to undergrad at Penn at University of Pennsylvania and studied nothing to do with finance or with fashion. Studied like urban public policy, so completely different world. But after my, junior year in college, I went and I interned for the summer at Credit Suisse in banking. And then I went back there after I graduated and I stayed at Credit Suisse for 3 years. And I worked mostly in a group called Financial Sponsors, which, as you know, deals a lot with leverage finance with private equity firms. So I wasn't working in a particular industry. Like there's industry groups within investment banking, right, where you specialize in like consumer or hospitality or whatever else. So I wasn't specialized in an industry, but what I was specialized in was working with these private equity firms and getting to really like know and understand their portfolio companies or companies that they were trying to acquire. Also, caveat being that I started in that space in 2008, which was like insane time to start. So there were some acquisitions, but there was also a lot of like refinancing and things like that, because obviously the world was sort of falling apart at the time. But the deals that I was always like the most excited about were the deals that were consumer, not necessarily even because I was like, this is a product I love or I'm super fascinated by what they're selling. It was like, I would walk down the street and walk past like a brand or a company that like we had had something to do with, even if it was just like a refinancing or whatever. And I'd be like, wow, that's the deal I was working on. And I'd walk into the store and be like, this is cool to watch, like what it is about this brand that's making people want to walk in here and kind of spend their money. Like I remember Claire's accessories being one of the first deals I worked on. And it wasn't that I was buying a lot of stuff from Claire's. It was just like really cool to me to walk into like a physical representation of this business that I'd been like really in the weeds, because then as an analyst, which is what I was, you're like super in the weeds on every detail of every SKU and every anything, to like see a physical representation of it. I loved. And also I love fashion, just like as a personal hobby. It has always been something that has been meaningful to me as a consumer, as something I was kind of like, never thought I would be necessarily like good at creating, but I thought I was good at like recognizing what was good, kind of. So more of like what I later learned was kind of more of merchandising. And so after 3 years, at this point, I was in the London office at Credit Suisse. I had been applying to a bunch of fashion jobs in New York, and I got a job at Rag & Bone. So I moved back to New York to work at Rag & Bone, and I was working in, well, I actually started working in planning. So like alongside merchandising, working in planning. And then over the course of my time there, my role changed a bit because the company was bringing on an investor. So my role changed to more like what we called business development, but I was the only person in quote unquote biz dev there. So I was working for one of the two founders who was the CEO and helping kind of with the deal process, which was really funny because I was basically like on the exact opposite side of what I'd been doing, right? Because I was working with an investment bank, but as the brand. So that was kind of my first like foray into actually working for a brand. And then I was there for like 4 years, like I said, doing a variety of things, but ostensibly mostly business development, but really like an opportunity to get into the weeds again on every different like aspect of the business, which was cool, particularly because when we were doing this big deal, we had to really like do crazy diligence on the business that we had never done. They had never done since the inception of the brand, right? So it was like, there would be like a week with a warehousing consultant where we would just spend a week in the warehouse looking into every single aspect and detail of warehousing. And then you just like, you know, then the marketing version of that, the retail version of that, et cetera. So it was a really good like crash course in all the areas of the business that I hadn't necessarily been exposed to before.
With this direction,
Yeah, of course.
like you just went from finance into this. There's
Sure.
got to be some table talk.
Yeah. My dad is definitely a mentor to me and has exposed me to, I guess, both of those industries separately, finance and
Your dad,
consumer goods.
For those who don't know, is Howard. I mean,
Yeah.
legendary retail investor, private
Mhm.
equity guy who's had a great deal of success and has been around my retail world for a number of years.
Yeah. I mean, and my dad, like, his first job out of college was working at Macy's. You know, he was a sheet buyer. I can never remember if he was a sheet buyer or a towel buyer, but my mom was one and he was the other. That's where they met. They were both part of the Macy's training program.
Me
As
too.
towel. And you were? I guess everyone great was. So, you know, that's like his origin story. That's his first foray into this world. And then after that, he left that job and went to business school. And then after business school, went into private equity. So he always like straddled both worlds. But at the end of the day, he loves fashion. He loves consumer products, like in a deep, crazy way that I don't even, is so much more deep even than mine. Like when I grew up, our days were spent walking up and down like Madison Avenue, not shopping, just like observing what the stores were doing, why some were working, why some were not. Like he'd be like, look at the doorknobs on the Bottega Veneta store. Like, look at that attention to detail. Like this is the kind of like family chat we had. Like I remember when Whole Foods opened on Houston Street, that first big Whole Foods. I mean, hours, we spent hours in there, not buying groceries, but like he was so obsessed with, they had like an almond butter machine and there were all these almonds being added to a machine and like crushed. And he was just like, what? He's like, it's brilliant. That's genius. It's brilliant. Like he's just brought us up observing that stuff constantly and recognizing what was working, what was not working, and having like an eye for that, I guess. Yeah.
What inspired you following your time at Rag & Bone to reconnect with some college friends and launch a brand?
No, so Meredith and Val weren't my college friends.
Oh, I thought you met at school.
No. They're much older than I am. Thank you, Ken. I'm a spring chicken. No, I met them through my time at Rag & Bone because they were both editors, or they both worked at Vogue. Meredith was there for 16 years. Val was there for 10 years. So I had met them like throughout the course of my time at Rag & Bone. They were kind of like these legendary fashion girls. Meredith was at the office a lot because she was an editor. So she was there for appointments all the time. And Val was bookings director. So they did kind of different things, but overlapped a lot in their 10 years there together. So we had met through my time there. And then we also had a lot of mutual friends, and they were leaving Vogue, and they started sort of consulting on with smaller brands, and they were consulting on the like marketing side, kind of what you'd expect to former editors to consult on. And I was on the side sort of just for fun, consulting with similar size brands, but like much more on the business side. So I was kind of helping people with like financial models and putting together investor decks or whatever else. Like I had a few ongoing projects because that was what I was going to say before, which was that like the company Rag & Bone at the time started getting really big. My job was becoming like a lot more siloed just because now all of a sudden we had like a CFO and a CEO and we brought in all these people. And so I just like had more time. So I just kind of started exploring what like some freelance consulting could look like. So someone was like, you guys should all talk about how you're kind of doing the same thing, like opposite things, but for the same size companies. Maybe there's some sort of overlap. So I went to meet them and they were like, we're just trying to get to know the ins and outs of brands. We want to start a brand. We know creatively what it looks like, but we just don't know how to start a brand. We don't know what it takes. So this is like a learning mission for us right now. And they're like, and we really need a third who really gets that, who knows the business side. We really need a partner, a CEO. And I was like, okay. So I left that meeting, and the next day I was going on a trip with two of my girlfriends, two of my still best friends, Tracy and Selby. And Selby had been at Vogue as well for a while. She knew the girls. And we went to Hawaii, the three of us. And I just remember we were like sitting on a boat and I was telling Selby the whole story. And she was like, they're asking you. And I was like, no, they're not. Like, they're so much more experienced than I am. And she was like, no, but like, they know you have something that they don't have. Like, they're asking you. And I was like, okay. So then I spent the whole rest of that trip working on a deck and a model. I like pitched what I thought the brand could be, like how we would enter the market, who our customer was, et cetera, et cetera. And so I came back and I sat down with them and I showed it to them. And then I was like, and I want to be CEO and I want a third of the company. And they were like, okay, that's what we were hoping you'd say. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And that was how it started. So then I went and told David and Marcus, who were very supportive. They love Meredith and Valerie. So they were like, whatever we can do to help. Like,
And David and Marcus are the founders of Rag.
Are the Rag & Bone founders, yeah. So, they were incredibly supportive of all of us, of like me on my career journey, but also of the brand as it started. David officially served as an advisor to the brand when we were launching, and he's still super supportive and the best. And yeah, that's kind of like how and then we spent the next year developing the company. We raised money, not a lot, a very little bit, hired a very lean team and started making and designing product. And that is kind of the origin.
And the thought around the name and the space, how did you guys come together to land on the name and make sure that the space was one that you all agreed on? I'm sure, I don't know your co-founders, but I'm sure like you, they have a strong point of view around fashion and product. So there had to be a meeting of the minds. How did that come?
Yeah. Well, so they had already had the name in mind. So they were like, how do you feel about the name? And their point of view was, I mean, obviously the stripe is a big part of the collection, right? So it wasn't necessarily going to be, everything wasn't going to be all over stripes. It's not like in your face, every piece. It could be a subtle detail. Like, I mean, I'm wearing a solid sweater right now, but it has a line down the back. So the idea of the line as opposed to the stripe made sense. In terms of all of our references and all of how we dreamt the brand to be, it was a very, I mean, I feel like I mentioned this to you a few times, but it's that very like undone, non-fussy sort of like French attitude, which is definitely how we wanted to approach the aesthetic of the brand in terms of product, but also in terms of the kind of content we were creating and who our muses were and what all of our reference imagery was. So we liked the French take on the line, which is like the literal translation. And then also, this wasn't going to be about us. It wasn't like, this isn't a brand that's going to be called like Molly Howard or whatever else, this was really about the girl and the clothes. So we wanted to like take ourselves out of the equation. And that's kind of how it happened. So I was like, for all of those reasons, I agreed that it was a great name. It did the trick. It is a name that people mispronounce a lot. So it has
examples of how the name can get butchered.
La Ligne is the most common one. That's tough to hear. La Ligne is hard. La Ligne sometimes. But the truth is like, we're not even saying it properly because like then you have to do that thing where you're an American speaking with like a strong French accent, which feels kind of embarrassing. So we just say La Ligne. That's how most people say it.
I like it. It's clean. It's clean.
Something we didn't really like and think about the fact that it was going to be a pronunciation thing. There's a brand that I love, Proenza Schooler. You know that brand?
Sure.
But I remember seeing a really funny video they did once where they just went out in the street and they asked people, they just showed them it and they asked, how would you say this? And like no one said it right. It reminds me of that. I thought that was really
That's
cute.
a funny thing.
Yeah.
As you're getting ready to roll the brand out, you raise a little bit of friends and family money.
Yeah.
Which I think is like sustained you pretty much through to today. How much have you actually raised in total?
So in 2015, which was like before we launched, we raised just under 2 million at the time. And then again in the summer of 2018, we raised about 2 million again. So we've raised about 4 million, just a little bit under. And that's like almost 10 years.
Sustained you and you're profitable.
Yeah.
So that's a great note because you don't hear that often.
I mean, that brings me back to kind of like what we started talking about with my career in finance, which, you know, when we were launching this brand, which was 2016, there was a ton of direct-to-consumer brands launching that were all super venture-backed, and they were spending crazy money on marketing, right? And they were just concerned with what their top-line numbers look like. They didn't care about profitability. They didn't really care about margin. They didn't care about how much money they were spending on customer acquisition. It was like strictly like, let's be able to say we're doing like $150 million in our first year or whatever it is. And that obviously afforded people the ability to raise at these crazy valuations, raise a ton of money, which was something that we didn't do. But what my concern for it and what has proven to be a legitimate concern is that that's not sustainable. And there's no like actual proof of concept in that. And I didn't see that as like a long-term strategy. And I think that goes back to like my finance training was all in private equity, which like all they cared about was profitability and health of a business. So I was like so trained to be focused on creating a healthy business above anything else. Obviously, if you focus on growth, you want to grow, your top line matters, but alongside like, is it a legitimate business, not just like a product that you can sell units? So that was like a definite focus for me from the beginning. And Meredith and Valerie, like the thing about them is that they're so, you know, there's no ego at all, even though they have these like incredibly impressive careers that for me, I'm like, you deserve to have bigger egos than you do, but they're very deferential when it comes to something they don't know. And so they really like leaned on me for all of that. And we're kind of like, we're on this journey with you, like what you think is best. We agree, like we trust you implicitly with this. So they gave me, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility, but I think they're happy and I'm happy that that was the path we chose. So we do have investors, but they're really not institutional investors. They're super helpful. There are a lot of people that are in the industry and have great ideas and great relationships and have been really, really helpful to us, even though we're tiny investment for them. So we're really lucky for that, but we don't have the kinds of investors where we're like, I'm not spending half of my time like putting together an investor report.
And also investors that can push you to grow for growth's sake, not necessarily help.
Totally, because they want to exit. Yeah.
Exactly, because they have a time horizon on their money. How did you decide with your partners who is going to be responsible for what? I mean, generally I hear it's tough enough to have a co-CEO or a co-founder, let alone have two. So a little bit about roles and responsibilities when you were chopping it up, what that conversation sounded like.
I actually think 3 is easier than 2 because it makes it not personal because we just have like a majority rule. And my fear with that in the beginning, truthfully, was that I thought it would always be the 2 of them versus me. Like they were the 2 creatives. They have the long history together. It's very rarely that that's the occasion. It really like changes all the time. So in the beginning, there was a lot of sharing of responsibilities. Like we all just did everything all the time. I mean, you know, technically I became the CEO day 1, I guess, but we were all just doing everything. And, you know, we still don't have like a CFO. At this point, we have a COO, which is like the only other C-suite person that we've hired who helps me tremendously because I was kind of like fully bearing the burden of everything on the business side prior to hiring her. But we knew it was going to be like a split sort of between the creative and the business side where they were going to control the creative. And I was like fully on board, very happy for that, except I brought in my experience with merchandising because it was like, they're not just like designing for the sake of designing. It was very much like a conversation with me about, as soon as we had a little bit of information and like looking out in the market, like what was selling, what kind of stuff we should be designing into. So we got to a point quite quickly where I was, providing a line plan that they were then following and designing into. But based on like what their previous jobs were and a lot of what their expertise, what they were really good at, and also really what they liked doing, their role split sort of quickly because Meredith is such a like marketer. She's so creative with like concepting things, and that's just her way. So she really like runs the marketing and brand. And then Val is like a stylist. Like she's the most stylish probably and the most like the greatest fashion lover. I mean, both Meredith and Valerie honestly have incredible style. I look like a slob every day compared to them. They're like in full outfits all the time. But it became clear quickly that Val would oversee design. So like actual product. So it's like Valerie's overseeing product, Meredith's overseeing brand, and I'm overseeing the business. But there's so much overlap. Like all three of us are in fittings constantly. All three of us are like in investor meetings. You know what I mean? There's a lot of jumping across lanes. I just came back from Paris because I was doing a shoot for a collaboration we have upcoming. And, Meredith and Valerie have trained me well enough at this point that like neither of them was there for that shoot. So it was just like me, photographer, production, styling, and I oversaw that shoot. So like we've trained each other in our various fields so that we can all show up if someone else can't.
When deciding what the business would look like relative to the consumer, you landed on being D2C. You wanted to be online and stores. Talk a little bit more about the decision around that strategy, where you are today and how you kind of opened up your aperture to include a bit more.
Yeah, I think that was a few things that dictated that choice, mine, but theirs as well, because Meredith oversaw the Vogue Fashion Fund when she was at Vogue, the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. So she spent a lot of time working with small brands. And if you have spent a lot of time working with small brands who are wholesale dependent, which at the time, like any true fashion brand was wholesale dependent. Now it's changed a lot, obviously. If you spend a lot of time with a young brand that is wholesale dependent, you will quickly learn how challenging that can be in a lot of ways, right? Like you're really at their mercy. They hold the cards, like they can demand swaps, they can cancel orders. They have just a lot of power in a way that you don't, particularly as a young brand, because you don't have the leverage of being like, I'm your biggest account, do what I say. And I saw that even at Rag & Bone. And I also saw at Rag & Bone that it was hard when you were working with a big wholesaler to like hand over control of sort of what the brand looks like, right? It's like, I mean, by the way, that can even mean what product looks like, because they'll come back and say like, yeah, we like this style, but we want it in hot pink. And all of a sudden you have hot pink in your collection, which you never intended to do. But also just like who the people are that are selling the clothing, how they're pronouncing your name, what music is playing, like what candle is burning, what it's merchandised next to, how it's merchandised even within itself. Like all of these controls, again, as a small brand, like go away, right? And it's like we knew we were going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of thought going into what is this brand? How does it speak to customers? How do they feel when they see it? And that it doesn't just mean a sweater, right? It means like entering the world of the lean. So it's like, why are we going to turn over that decision making to someone else? Why can't we just be in control of how people are interacting with the brand? Basically, was our decision. And then further to that, from a price point standpoint, we wanted to offer people a more, I don't really use this word because I know it is expensive, but more accessible price point for a product that is like luxury cusp, right? And it's like some of our peers have to consider that they're selling mostly to wholesale. So they build that into their margin, which means their direct business, they have a way stronger margin than us, which is great. But on their wholesale business, they don't. And as a result, the customer is just paying for that. So we were like, how do we structure this where we make sure that wholesale is a small enough percentage of the business that the blended margin is still where we need to be. And therefore we only kind of have to mark things up once. So basically, like when we're thinking about pricing, we have cost and we have retail. And then we have a shitty margin on our business, but it's only 15% of the business. So it's fine.
And you mentioned peers just so that others that are listening can better understand more with whom you compete or where you might sit if you were in multiple wholesale locations, which to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I have so much admiration for all the brands I'm about to say. Just want to throw that out there. Like, I think like, not that there's anything wrong with the word competition, but like, I have had such a positive experience in my role as the CEO of this company with other CEOs and founders of quote unquote competitors, which is like so much information sharing, so much guidance, so much help, like transparency on like, if we're looking at a new store, I'll talk to my counterpart at brands that are already in that area and they will like be like, this is what we're doing per square foot and this is what we're paying. Like so much help and guidance. And obviously we pay that forward as well. And I just think this kind of like bitchy fashion world is like a thing of the past. All that to say, you know, I think we're talked about a lot of times alongside like Jenny Kane, Stodd, Doen, The Great. I think less and less now, but like we still hang around like Rag & Bone, Frame.
Sure.
Sort of those are our peers.
And you've done a great job breaking into denim also, which has been a super hot category for you. So you have 7, you're about to open up your 8th store?
Yeah, we're opening up our 8th store next month, hopefully.
And the store's like average in size about, you told me it's crazy, but like under 1,000 feet, maybe.
1,000 is like,
and look for
1,000 is the dream.
The dream is 1,000.
1,000's perfect.
And
our Madison store is 650. You were just there.
Store. It was so crowded in there. I had to go outside just to change my mind. I swear to God, it was really busy.
It's really small. Yeah, I mean, it's 650 square feet. It was a jewelry store before.
Well, you're killing it there. I can only imagine how much you're doing.
That store was our first store. It was absolutely terrifying. We could not believe we were signing like a 5-year lease. And as you can imagine, a Madison Avenue pricing, like absolutely insane. We're so terrified. We decorated that store mostly with everything from our homes, which is still all in there. It's like all our personal stuff, even like our vases and things. And then it opened in May of 2019. So it wasn't even open a year until it had to close because of COVID. So it was like, it was a challenge, but man, that store is an absolute beast. I feel like we have like Apple per square foot numbers. It's really great.
I know those look like $2,000 a square foot.
It's a crazy.
That's what we're talking. That's huge.
It's a great store.
Molly, who on the team then? I mean, digital e-commerce is the largest part of your business.
E-commerce is our biggest part.
How did you find your e-commerce person? Because I assume you didn't really talk a lot about e-commerce in your prior life.
No.
And it doesn't sound like your co-founders had much digital experience either.
I mean, the craziest thing is that we didn't hire a director of e-com until 2024.
Wow.
I know, but we have like digital agency that does all the back end, obviously like keeping the site up. We were on Shopify, which is pretty user friendly. I can make a ton of changes to the website right now if I want, but we have an agency that obviously deals with any like coding changes and bugs and all that kind of stuff. And then we have had for a while a digital agency that's the one dealing with sort of like SEO and paid ads and all that kind of digital marketing agency, basically. And then we have like a digital marketing team internally, but we did not have a person who was actually like living and breathing our website every day, all day, which was I would say a way too late hire considering it's our biggest store by far. Yeah. Who's now like every day, like changing placement, changing wording, changing order of things, like just constantly adjusting.
Do you think that delay in hiring that person helped you really dig into the area with your agency to better understand what the needs were and to know more about the digital space?
I think we all had a crash course in it. I think probably we should have hired her a couple of years ago. I don't think we needed her from the jump, but I think we were pretty late on that. It just always felt like something else was more urgent and it was always working and it was always good. It's the fastest growing part of the business. It's the biggest part of the business. Like, it was good. So it was not like urgent, you know what I mean? In a way that it was like, okay, we're opening all these retail stores. We need to hire a retail person maybe because like the first 3 stores we opened without any retail person. We were just like, okay, this is like where I'm going to order the hangers from.
You talk a little bit before about the relatively small percent of contribution from wholesale, a couple of wholesale partners that are important to you.
Totally.
Talk a little bit about them and maybe your perspective on wholesale going forward and the role it'll play in your growth.
So I think you want to find wholesale partners who are willing to like understand everything I said before and work with you in a way that you feel comfortable with the way you're represented and shown. We did launch with wholesale. So when we launched the brand, the day that we launched on our own website, we also launched on Net-a-Porter. So they were our first wholesale account. They came to look at the collection. I will never forget, while we were shooting all of our e-com, we had a huge set and we were shooting like half of the set was portraits that we were shooting of like our brand ambassadors, all these women. We had like shot 50 women in 2 days. So they were coming in and out on the hour, every hour. And then the other half of the set was all our e-com happening. And then Net-a-Porter came in to see the collection there and decided to pick it up, which was amazing. And we always like really trusted what it would look like on Net-a-Porter. I mean, just as we do now, they're obviously like very elevated. I think even then when we launched, there was way less contemporary on the site than there is now. So we kind of like stood out in that regard because we were a way lower price point than a lot of what they were selling. Now they have like a much bigger mix. It was just like, there was no fear of how they would merchandise it, how they would style it, how they would like write about it, how they would promote it, like who would be wearing it from them. We were just like, we're so happy putting the brands in your hands. Like we know what it will. And I still feel that way. They're just here. They just left the office, like as we've been on here for their appointment because we're in market right now. And they're great. They remain amazing partners. It grows every year with them, kind of like in line with how the business is growing. We have really strong sell-through. It's also our only really international presence because the rest of our wholesalers, I mean, obviously you can buy like Saks.com in Europe or whatever, but Net-a-Porter buys for their Europe distribution and their UK distribution. And it's really our only like international wholesale partner, which I love because we don't do anything overseas right now. We don't spend any money marketing over there. Like they are essentially the only way people are knowing about us over there other than maybe like organic social and stuff. Yeah. So they were our first, felt really good about it. Still do. All these years later, we're still with them. And then we started going into some like brick and mortar, physical wholesale partners, which has been great, but we just like balance the growth. I don't want the growth of our wholesale business to like surpass the growth of the rest of the business. And that way it stays in line in terms of like, I always had this like weird thing about it being less than 20%. And the reason for that was because during my time at Rag & Bone and in all the like conversations I had with more traditional brands, this is such a like arbitrary reason. It's so stupid in hindsight, but it was like, they were always like, we're 80% wholesale, 20% direct. And I was like, we're going to flip this thing on its head. But
the 20 to 30% range feels like it's a good, healthy range, allow you to get international markets or areas of the country where maybe there's little brand recognition or presence. It is a good way.
It's huge.
Without
especially now, like there's so much being thrown at us online. Like I get these Instagram ads all the time. I'm like, those are cute. Should I get that? And then I like go to the website. I'm like, is this a real brand? Like, am I going to be able to return this? Like, I don't know what the deal is. And with all of that, it's nice. I think it like validates you in a real way to be like, oh no, I know this brand. Like I buy it in Neiman Marcus. And then Shopbop is another big account for us, which we absolutely adore. They've been so incredible to work with. They're our newest large account. We've been with them like 2 years, I guess. And it's a really, really healthy business. We love them. Such a great partner.
And that reaches, I assume, a younger customer than
Totally.
Where you might reach directly online.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now a quick word from our sponsor. Looking for a 3PL that's truly next level? Cart.com is a 3PL on steroids with nationwide distribution centers and the most advanced AI-driven software solutions from WMS and OMS to TMS, all designed to streamline your entire delivery process. With Cart.com, you get a fully integrated commerce platform that unifies your operations, data, and customer experience all in one place. Their platform combines physical distribution with cutting-edge AI, empowering retailers to scale faster and more efficiently. Whether you're D2C, B2B, or omnichannel, Cart.com connects your tech stack, simplifies your logistics, and powers your growth. From click to customer, enabling distribution for Janie and Jack, Portland Leather Goods, Tom's, and many more. Cart.com. We talked a little bit about the power of influencers. I think you've taken a bit of a conservative approach to influencers, maybe much more of an authentic approach to influencers and who wears your product and what you're willing to do for them in order to wear the product. Talk a little bit about where your head is relative to that strong category of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very current conversation that we're trying to kind of really understand and wrap our heads around, because I think, listen, I don't have this like backed by data, but what I believe is a really big part of the success of our brand is that like we are truth tellers. It is such a like real authentic story. Like any person that wears a product or like is in our, like, I don't know, if you see my wall of all my campaign girls, like these are real Lillian girls. These are girls who wear the product, who love it, who we're in community with, who have been really supportive of us from the beginning. And it's just like true. Like these are not people that were just like paid to wear the clothes. And I think people know that. And I do believe that is like a part of the success of the brand. And I think it's hard to like pivot your mindset all of a sudden and be like, yeah, we're just going to like pay these women who we don't even know to shell product out, right? But it's also like the reality of the world that we are in right now, which is like digital marketing is getting like harder and more expensive. And like, it's a much more challenging place to play in than it was even like a couple years ago when we really started. Because the first couple years, we just didn't do anything. We just like let it speak for itself. And we're not even like on TikTok yet. So there's a lot of these new worlds in which we need to like explore more. So we have started using Shop My. And by the way, it's like, it's been great. And it does have some of that like authenticity to it, because the way that we've structured it is like, we'll reach out to girls who feel like a right like fit for the brand and sort of like offer them a variety of pieces to choose from. And then they can, but we're not like paying them, but they can choose or choose not to, you know, take the piece, wear it, and then they link their little Shop My code and they get a commission. But we can't even control the craziest part, which I was like really shocked to learn, was that if you're going to be on those apps, which we are, which like everyone is, literally every brand, you can't really control who is selling your stuff, which is crazy.
And even how they're selling it.
It's crazy.
Is the amount of creative liberty that they give Shop My folks. And as you said, like almost everyone is on Shop My. They're blowing up as a selling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's brand exposure. It is.
Brand exposure.
It's difficult. And how do you market? How do you effectively, cost effectively get the name out there, get the brand in front of the customer in a way that feels good to you and authentic?
It's just crazy because we don't have to send girls things to wear. They can buy it on their own. They don't even have to buy it. They can just post a link, whatever they want to do. It's so crazy. It's just like a whole new world to wrap your head around that like I was really like hesitant about in the beginning. And I was like, oh, well, here's like some influencers, quote unquote, who we know, who've been supporters of us for a long time. Like, let's just send it to them. Cause then it's like still feels, but now it's kind of, and then everyone's like, you can't just do that. If we're going to be on the thing, anyone can sell your stuff. Like they can literally just share it. They don't even have to have tried on the product for all their people know. They could just be like, here's a screenshot of a bunch of things that are in my cart right now or whatever. And it works. And it's really working and growing. But something that we need to then like factor into margin because we're commissioning them.
Right. But I assume you have commission in your stores as well.
Yeah, we have commission in our stores. Yeah.
As you think about business and the challenges you faced, is there like one turning point that you can point to, which was like that moment of, oh my God, are we going to make it? Or
yeah,
the right direction to go? And share with us one of those examples.
I mean, it's not necessarily like an event, but there was a period in 2018, like right before we raised money, which is funny because 2018 ended up being our first profitable year. But in the lead up, early 2018, it was just, that's also like when we started deciding to like pay for like digital advertising things. It was just like, we could not drive enough traffic to the site. We could not sell enough product. Like we had like lost the hype of like new brand that's like exciting and fun. And now it's just like, okay, you need to give people a reason to like come back all the time. We just had no money. We all shut off. I mean, I say we shut off our salaries. We barely had salaries at this point, but we had a little salary, which when I say we all, I mean myself, Meredith, and Valerie. Like we were just like, Meredith and I would always laugh. We'd be like in the pouring rain, like with a clothing rack, like down the street, like really late at night after like some crazy shoot that was like, very cost effective that was happening like in my apartment or whatever. And we had to return the clothes to the office. And we're just like, remember this for the book. Remember this for the book. We've always been saying, remember this for the book for like years. But what it did do was teach us that we needed to create excitement and reason for people to constantly be coming back to the site. And I think that was the motivator for what is now like a very, very important part of our structure, which is that we release product on a weekly basis. So we used to do it like, in drops in season, just like a traditional fashion brand would, right? But we made the decision then for two reasons. One, what I said, every Tuesday, an email goes out. It's called Le Drop. It has like 5 to 6 products that we're releasing that week. And it gives people a reason to come back. It's styled back maybe to core styles or older styles. It reinvigorates old product. Almost half of our business is core. So it's like the same sweater that we've been selling for 8 years is always in our top 10 styles. So it's a big part of our business. So give people a reason to come back. They'll buy the new stuff. They'll probably also dip into the older stuff, the core stuff. Just like always have fresh reasons for people to come back. The other reason was from a cash flow perspective, it really made a lot more sense because I don't want to just be like buying a season's worth of inventory and then sitting on it and every day just like waiting to get my Shopify payout from that day, right? Instead, what we should be doing is like really receiving goods when we're ready to sell them. So it totally changed the way. And so we design in a season, just like any normal brand does. And then like as soon as market ends this week, we sit down and we come up with a drop schedule for a 3-month period where once a week, sometimes 2 times a week, we have a drop. We then share that with our factories. They know when we need product, when we're launching it, and we try to abide by it as much as we can. Obviously, there's delays and things that change it, but it helps our cash flow.
Are you airing goods?
We do both. All our core business, we boat because we buy like massive inventory. We have way advanced, but it depends. For seasonal stuff, it's burger.
I know we're not going to disclose the size, the volume of the business, but it's a big, small business for those who are listening.
It's a big, small business. That's right.
And let's just touch on some of the challenges you must be facing based on our current administration's desire to impose these onerous tariffs on businesses, which are really hitting the smaller businesses or the larger businesses, because smaller businesses like yours have relied on China and can afford to do the large runs of goods or the MOQs required elsewhere in the world. How are you dealing with this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. And then the other part is it's hard to make any like drastic decisions because we have no idea what like 30 days from now is going to look like. So
how about tomorrow?
Yeah, no, totally. And by the way, like these decisions are made in a way that feels, without getting political, feels really like impulsive and retaliatory and quick acting. And then are you so offended? Can you believe I said that?
I do. I think the cabinet sits around the table in the morning and they say, what's the craziest idea you have? Someone will say, how about 200% tariffs?
Literally.
Wine.
And we're going to hold this sign up that like makes no sense. And okay.
Unbelievable.
Sorry. But those things hit us like that day. Cause like we had goods that were on the way from China. And then all of a sudden we had to pay 145% tariff. And everything I was saying before about the way we think about like pricing structure and margin means like we don't have the room for that. So at the very, very least, the universal tariff of 10% is a huge impact on our business. Like at the very least, our costs have gone up to 10%. I mean, we make 10% of our stuff here in New York. So 90% of our costs have gone up 10% at the very least. we make a lot of stuff in China. So there's like a couple different ways that we're dealing with it. First, working with our factories, renegotiating, especially our Chinese factories. It's like the factories in the rest of the world are like, we're not negotiating. We have all the leverage, but Chinese factories understand they need to kind of meet you in the middle, not the middle, but somewhere. So that's the first one. The second one is reallocating to different factories in different countries. But like, again, like I said before, like we've done that, right? In Vietnam or Cambodia, but like, who knows what tariffs are going to get slapped on those countries. So yeah, so that's a temporary solution. Third is just reducing costs wherever we can, like operating expenses, basically. It's like we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary in April. And we had like these really grand plans about like a rebrand and like a new website and all this stuff. And I'm just like, we're not doing that right now. Like unnecessary spending like that, that's not around payroll and rent and, supporting the nest. It's like, it's not, no more nice to haves right now while we figure out what's going on. And then the last thing is we're raising prices.
Now, the president wouldn't be happy with that. He would tell you to eat the price increases.
Yeah, but we can't. Then we have to fire people. So I don't know what he wants. Does he want people to lose their jobs?
The prices I've heard across the board are strategically going up, people.
Yeah.
Across the board, but they're looking at which items, a little more price elasticity.
That's what we're doing. Yeah, it's not like a blanket.
Of course.
It's literally, we've gone product by product for anything that we have on reorder and anything that's new for the next 6 months, basically. But we had already locked in pricing. It's basically, now it's been 2 months since this happened. So like 4 months from now is when we can start doing that. But it's harder on anything else because we've locked in pricing with our wholesale partners. So there's some that we're talking to and we're like, we're raising prices. We would like you to raise the price on this. I mean, for them, it's kind of a win-win because we're not changing their wholesale price. So they just are getting more margin on those pieces and they're pretty happy to. I mean, our price is really reasonable. I think that there's room anyway. And we've made it so we've only done like one price increase in the life of this brand. Yeah. So there's room, but that's part of our like strategic advantage is like we have a really good price for what we're selling. So I don't want it to go up too much.
I was at a offsite yesterday listening to a number of CFOs speak about their business. And then a group of bankers got together who cover the sector. And one of them just said, we are probably at the lowest point of tariffs that we are going to see, which was a little depressing, but that's the reality because they are going to go up from here. Maybe not China, but Vietnam, Cambodia, Southeast Asia is going to go up.
I mean, Europe,
and Europe, who knows what's going to happen there, but they were almost saying that you should be calculating a 1.5 to 2x tariff rate on today as to where the back half of the year will look. So if you're at a weighted average of 12% today, you'll be at 18% or maybe 20% total. It could go up 2x depending on where you're making your goods. But before we conclude with rapid fire, talk to me a little bit more about just some of the things that you're excited about that are going to drive growth in the future, new categories, collaborations, which you probably won't tell me who you're doing them with, but you're doing them. Just what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, and I think most excited about retail. Our retail stores are just so they're such fun spaces. And I love having the physical representation of our brand. Like I love our website. Obviously it's easy. It's accessible. You can get on your phone, 2 clicks and there it is on the way. But I'm part of what I was saying before about growing up with my dad. Like I'm so drawn to these physical spaces that I feel such enormous pride and I can't believe it every time we open a store. I'm walk in, I'm this is our space. And I also am a major interiors junkie. That's my other passion. And so I get super, super I'm picking out every swatch of fabric and on first dibs, finding amazing old vintage sofas that we're recovering and putting in the stores. I love that part of it as well, which is fun because it's not happening that often, but so it feels like a little vacation from my normal job. And the stores are just so productive. They're such a great, healthy way to grow the business, right? I just know it's very predictable also. So it's when I'm planning and I'm such a banker in the way that I model this stuff out, I still use my basically Credit Suisse scrapped model format. And everyone in the office like laughs at me because I still work on a PC.
Being done on your PC.
Yeah. And I just like put my headphones in. I don't have a mouse. I just use my shortcuts and everyone's like, oh, here she goes. Like this nerd. But it's just really easy to plan out, right? Like it's super predictable. And I like that, obviously. And there's just so much opportunity. I mean, we have opening our 8th store, but like I was saying this to you, like we don't even have a store in LA. It's our second biggest market online. We're huge in LA. We don't have a store downtown in New York. I mean, there's so much opportunity and like some of the biggest markets that I talk to my peers about, we just don't have stores there. Like I want one in Miami. I want one in Atlanta. I want one in DC. I mean, we just like, it just feels endless. So that's like a really stable, it's an investment upfront, which is why we not just like massively going for it, but that's something that I'm really excited about. And then, new categories. So like you said, denim launched.
Before you hit the, can you share with us how, you do such volume and such high productivity. How quickly do the stores pay you?
In the first year, every store.
First year payback. I mean, most retailers think it's pretty good. 18 months, they'll accept 2 years. You're doing it within a year.
They're tiny stores and we're not spending a lot of money on them.
I know, but it's a great message to deliver to your shareholders.
Yeah, for sure. They love the stores. They're very excited about the stores.
All right, new categories that are going to blow this thing up.
So
I hear there's some men's stuff. I have to find it.
I know the men's stuff is like, it's really marketed for women to buy for their guys. Like the website and the stores are really not set up for men to come in and explore as a men's brand. It's really like, it's an add-on. And the women love it because it's all matching. And we have some kids stuff, which is all matching as well to the women. So you can have your little Christmas card family. So we launched denim 2 years ago and it took like a little while to kick off. I think we thought it would be like instantly a big success and it took a while, but now it's like massively growing and becoming a big part of the business. And it's so, all I wear jeans every day. I wear jeans and a t-shirt and a sweater every day. Like, so for me, it feels like a really important moment because I can like genuinely be head to toe La Ligne every day, which I am now.
I love the cutout of the patch.
Thanks.
I thought of that. That's so cool. I love that.
At first it's changed. It had like a few iterations from the first launch, but we wanted that like call back to, the original is that obviously Levi's, like that you see a pair of Levi's, they're Levi's. Rag & Bone obviously did that incredibly well, but how do you do it in a way that's not like branded? It's branded in that you can recognize it, but it's not. It was funny. Someone wore them in a music video and we didn't know that she was wearing them. And we would never have known because she didn't like call them in. She just bought them, I guess. But then someone was watching the video and was like, those are obviously our jeans. Cause she turned around and she's like shaking her butt and you're like, oh my God, those are La Ligne. We would have never known. We would have just been like, oh, that's a pair of wide leg jeans, So that we were like, okay, good. We're glad we did it this way. But so denim's been great for us. And then the question is like, what's the next category? Like you said, we like dip into men's, dip into kids. We do a ton of collaborations in categories that we are not in. Like we've done bag collaborations. We've done footwear collaborations. We've done jewelry. We have a ton of upcoming. One is a footwear one that we're really excited about that will be the end of the year. 2 ones that are coming up are less like category collaborations. They're with personalities that are really fun and exciting, but not like new categories. But collaborations are a really good way to test the appetite of our customer for a new category. So footwear being one that we're like super focused on.
We're going to conclude with rapid fire.
Okay. I'm ready.
La Ligne, the 3 brands in your closet.
Okay. Number 1 is the Row for sure. Like number 1, 2, and 3 are the Row, but I'll give you some other ones. This isn't really a brand, but I wear like a ton of vintage. So I'd say the Row and then vintage for sure. Usually if I'm not in La Ligne, it's vintage. I kind of learned that from Meredith. She really taught me how to like scout good vintage. And then I have been a long time big buyer of Proenza Schooler. I don't know what it's going to look like now that Jack and Lazaro are leaving to Dior, but I'm a big Proenza girl because it's like way more edgy than anything La Ligne or the Row. It's like, it's where I get a little like more funky. It's where my funky fashion style comes in.
Snyder's wife, Shira, is running the business now there. You should meet with her.
Great. I would love to meet with her and just tell her everything I love about it. I can walk her through my vintage archive of Proenza that I've had for years.
I'll connect it to it. Favorite interview question you like to ask?
I like to ask people what is the best advice they've ever received.
What is the best advice you've ever received? No, I got it. Now I want to know. Yeah, I'm curious.
I have two answers. One is like my appropriate answer, and one is like no, I'll just do the appropriate one. I have one that's like naughty, but the appropriate one is from Val, which I love this advice. And this is like business or personal life. And she says, always take the meeting.
I love that.
It's great. And she means like go on a date, meet with this potential investor, whatever it is, just like take the meeting.
What's your go-to La Ligne piece?
The Colby pant. It's like I live in the Colby pant, and I live in it like on an airplane, and I live in it like to a fancy event with a heel. I literally wear it constantly. It's the best pant.
Favorite streamed show?
I just finished Shogun, which I loved. Have you seen it?
I didn't get through it.
You didn't like it?
It was a little tough for me. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, I loved it. I was so upset it was over. I thought there were many seasons. So when it ended, I was like, I got to start the next season. And then I was like,
yeah, I just finished Mobland, and I was like,
I haven't watched that, but it's on my list.
It's great. Oh, really good.
Is it great?
Really good. Almost as good as Landman.
Do you love that?
I've
watched a bit of that. I don't know. Okay, I think we have different TV tastes.
Who would you most like to meet?
My God, you're not supposed to meet your heroes. They're disappointing. Is that a good answer? Who do I want to meet?
Anyone.
God, I really don't have a good answer to this.
Make it more difficult. Dead or alive?
Dead or alive. Tupac? I would love to chat with him. I took a class at Penn that was called Tupac Shakur, and it was taught by this guy called Michael Eric Dyson, who is this like incredible writer, also like lawyer. He went to like, I mean, he has like a crazy story. He was like a preacher, and then he like went to Harvard and Yale, but he's like a brilliant mind. And he taught a class. He taught two classes. One semester it was Tupac, and the other semester it was Miles Davis. And it was the coolest class I took my whole time at Penn. So I came home, my parents were like, what are you studying? I was like, Tupac. They were like, okay. And every week it would be like a different name of one of his songs. And so it would be like Dear Mama, and then it would be like about his mom who was a Black Panther, and you'd learn about like Black Panthers. And there would be like always like news crews. They were recording the classes. Like Nas came to speak at one of our classes. It was the coolest thing, but it was like so fascinating because this guy was just like theater school kid from Maryland who was like a crazy poet and was like so fascinating. And I just became obsessed with him then. And still, I love his music.
And with that, we'll land this flight of the Retail Pilot. Molly Howard, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for tuning in to this week's flight of the Retail Pilot. And please give us a review on your favorite podcast platform.